right, welcome back to the Dropping Knowledge podcast. Super excited for today's episode. My guest today is Ryan Walkiewicz, also known as Mr. Walkiewicz. Thank you for making the time and thanks for hopping on.
My pleasure. My
For
pleasure.
sure. Awesome. So Ryan Walkiewicz has been a psychology teacher for almost just under 2 decades.
Yep.
Was it all at Freehold High School?
All Freehold. I did student teaching at Freehold Township, and then Borough hired me right away.
Nice. You have a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Yep.
And education degree as well. One teacher of the year, also a youth soccer coach, basketball coach, as well as the varsity boys volleyball coach. So you got your hands full. On top of that, also a husband, father of 2 boys.
Yep.
So you're making it happen. Just cool stuff.
Yeah.
Psychology is something very interesting to me. So
Okay.
that's why I'm very excited for this. But let's go back before you started teaching, about 2 decades ago, even before college. Were you always interested in the topic of psychology? What really got you into this?
I'm gonna go back to high school. I think high school was when it kicked off. I had a teacher named Mark Davies, who he probably doesn't even remember me because I had him for maybe half a year.
Gotcha.
But just the way he got into it and the way he started talking about it, he got me interested. And frankly, when I graduated high school and was looking to pick a major in college, I had no clue. I just knew I took that psych course and it seemed pretty cool. So I said, let's run with it and see where it takes me. So
Nice. Where'd you go to high school?
how?
Nice. So this is a broad statement, but
Okay.
so far, what's something that you would say is the most interesting thing you've learned about the mind that you enjoy teaching?
So say it again, most interesting thing.
Yeah, something that really stands out to you that you think everybody should learn because it's important.
I don't know if it's I think it's the most important thing people should be aware of is there's a lot more than you think that goes below the surface that's pulling the strings. We think we're conscious of everything and we think we're aware of why we're doing what we're doing. And there's some conditioning we all have deep inside of us that we're not really aware of, like where it came to be or how it came to be. And I think that's an important thing that most people should be aware of. Like, you aren't just this person on the surface. There's a lot of depth to you that,
Yeah,
you got to do a lot of soul searching to figure out.
for sure. Would you say most of that comes from the first 7 years of your life? All that, the environment, culture, everything you're surrounded by?
I mean, that absolutely plays a role, but I think so that's a very like Freudian belief, right? That like psychodynamic Freudian thing that's like, first 5-7 years of your life, these early childhood experiences kind of lay the groundwork, and that's how you are. And well, I believe there are things that are like, as a child, like that young, put into you. I think it's more long term. Like I'm going to say there's probably things that happen to you in high school that you might not remember right now, but the way you interacted with peers, the way your peers took to you, all that stuff, like laid a groundwork. And now we're getting to a couple other theoretical ideas, but the belief that like that time actually creates an identity for yourself. So it's a little different where like that early years lay the groundwork, but then you get to like high school and there's a lot of experiences, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of like independence that starts to happen. And now you figure out who you are transitioning into adulthood.
Does the brain ever stop developing? Like for me, I'm young. High school was not too long ago, but someone who's older, let's say in their 50s or 60s, was there events that happened a couple years ago for them that will change their identity the way something in high school might have changed mine?
I mean, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the tough thing with this. I don't have like clear cut evidence that's going to say like this definitely happens. And that's the cool thing about the science is like, it's really hard to have like a set 100% this happens for every person because we're people and we change. But Could something happen in your 50s that profoundly changes the trajectory of your life? I'd say so. I don't see why that couldn't happen to somebody. Like, you make me think of this thing. You ever hear the saying like, you know, your brain's still developing until 25.
The frontal lobe, maybe.
Frontal lobe, right? Right. That's the thing. Your frontal lobe develops until you're 25.
Anytime I prove my dad wrong and he gets a little upset, maybe he says your frontal lobe isn't developed yet to
Yeah, yeah.
defend himself.
And like it isn't. And a lot of times, a lot of the major connections, I guess, are still being made in that youthful brain. But the cool thing with the brain is that it's always changing. So, like, if you give yourself an experience and give yourself something consistent, this is called neuroplasticity. So it's the idea that like your brain will adapt and like the neurons will actually disconnect and reconnect based on, for some, like if you have an injury, all right, part of your brain's injured, the whole idea is other parts of your brain will actually be like, yo, we used to do this. We should find a way to reconnect. And as recovery occurs, and that's why that like physical therapy happens, because it starts seeing like, hey, the body's trying to do this. Let's try to connect to make this happen again. But it's the same thing with like life experiences. All right, neuroplasticity, your brain will change. Now, it's a lot more plastic when you're younger. The brain is a lot more moldable and adaptable when you're younger, which is why like a little kid, a 2-year-old, can learn like 3 different languages as long as they're exposed to. But like, for instance, if you wanted to like learn something new tomorrow, you want to start playing guitar. I don't know if you play guitar.
I might after this podcast.
Well, but here's the thing. You just got to give yourself the experience. Your brain will eventually figure it out. Are you going to become Eddie Van Halen? I don't know, maybe. But it'll figure out a way to coordinate everything, but you got to give it the experience. You got to do it. I like saying this to people a lot of times. You got to be bad at something before you're good at something. And that's exactly what that is. Your brain is learning how to be good at something, but you got to give it the experiences. That goes for playing guitar. That goes for any sport. Like most people who play a sport for the first time, they're uncoordinated. But you got to keep playing it to get coordinated. And that's your brain actually connecting. Be like, oh, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. That's why you practice. But it also goes into like if you want to be more confident, you can be more confident. You just got to do something confidently. And then like your brain's going to be like, what is wrong with this? Like there's an issue here. We aren't used to doing this. But the more you just like kind of like almost fake it till you make it, like almost not a joke. Like if you do that confident thing and the brain eventually is going to be like, maybe we are confident. Maybe this is the way we are. You can change that with time. That's like basis of like therapy even. So
would you say that dives into more of like reprogramming yourself? Would that be the right label for that?
I guess it's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, because
I don't like to think of myself as like a computer, but like it is reprogramming. Like if you give yourself the experience, the brain will follow.
But ultimately, you're building new neuroplasticity in essence.
Yeah, neural pathways. Plasticity is just the idea that the brain will reshape itself to experience.
Got it. So that's funny. When we're younger, we can, if we're exposed to it, learn new languages, learn many things quickly, rather than when we're older. Why is that? What's the main idea behind that?
I like coming back to the idea of language. Just think about it. You speak English, and you've been speaking English, and you're what, 21 years old
20.
now? 20 years old. You're 20 years old, and for 20 years, your brain has only done English. And then all of a sudden tomorrow, you're like, I want to learn Spanish. Your brain is, you've created a highway for English.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to like do road work. You got to redirect the road and create a second road that goes Spanish. And you might have taken some Spanish here at Freehold, but when you're learning that, what winds up happening is like, I like to think of it as like, you're laying a road. There's a huge forest there. So the first time you get through to try to make those connections, you got to go around trees. You got to like weave in and out. And then as you do it more, you got to chop down those trees. Okay. And then eventually when they're chopped down, you can kind of see the path a little better. All right. Then you got to grind some stumps because they're making it bumpy. Then you got a dirt road. All right. And you could go on the dirt road, but it's bumpy. It's not clean. It's not nice. And it's not until you do all those things over and over again do you have this smooth 4-lane highway. What I'm basically saying is you have a 4-lane highway for English. You haven't laid a road for Spanish yet. And your 4-lane highway has been paved for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like, and those trees on the other pathway have been growing for 20 years. So you got to like do a lot of work to knock those trees down. Whereas a 3-year-old has saplings. It's a lot easier to knock those trees down and make your road when you're 3.
That makes a lot of sense. That really does, because I've tried to learn Spanish, and I think it comes down, especially after you explaining that analogy, it comes down to how bad you want it, how
Yep.
consistent you stay, and like the discipline in that.
Yep.
And that goes for anything, any sport, like you said before, your brain's like learning
Yep.
again, which brings me to the next question.
Yep.
How can someone learn better? How can we learn to learn
Okay.
better? If that makes sense.
Well, this goes into like memory stuff. And there's have you ever heard of the memory palace or the memory castle or the memory house or anything like that?
I don't remember.
Okay. Like, it's a simple thing that people surpass, because a lot of times you go study in high school, and when you study in high school, it's a lot of like I guess our intuition is just to repeat it over and over again. I'm going to go read through my notes again. I'm going to read through my notes again. I'm going to read through my notes again. And that gives you a basic memory. But what winds up happening in terms of learning better is you got to connect it. You got to make a connection. So the memory house is essentially, if I gave you 25 random words right now in a list, do you think you can remember the whole thing?
No.
Probably not. I mean, the average short-term memory is about 7. Now, if I gave you that same list, but I said, okay, as I read the list, I want you to walk through your house. Okay, I want you to start at your front door. The first thing I say, I want you to put it on your front door. All right, then I want to walk in the entryway, and I want you to see the second thing, like in the entryway. Make it do something, make it weird, make it awkward, make it inappropriate. Doesn't matter. Like, you can be as messed up as you want up here.
Mhm.
I always say that too, because messed up stuff stands out to us.
Yeah.
All right. Walk into your kitchen, put something on the stove, put something at the dinner table, go into your room, put the next thing on the bed, put the next thing, in your closet, then go to the bathroom. The next thing you see is sitting on the toilet, go downstairs, go in the backyard, something sitting in your pool, swimming around. And all of a sudden, what you did in a relatively brief period of time, is you've taken all those new things in a list and connected them to a thing you already know. So now, when you need to go back and get that thing and you need to remember it and use it, all right, all you got to do is remember your house, which is already stuck up there anyway. You don't have to try to remember your house. You have it. And the second you take the walk through that house, you've now connected everything you had to learn to your house, to something you already know. I'll also say, like, I teach something, I like, just remember your hand. You got to remember 5 things, put them on each finger. And all you got to do is look at your hand and you got it. Because you remember that. Like
Exactly.
if you can link things to stuff you already know, you'll hang on to it. Because all you need, when we talk about memory, a lot of times what you need is you just need the access point to get in. As long as you paid attention to it in the first place. All right? If you didn't pay attention, I can't help you. Like, it never got in the first place. But if you sit there and just link it and take the effort, that's the big thing too. It's like, take the effort to link it to something new. I'm not just saying like put it in your house and make it weird for no reason. What that's forcing you to do is think about it for a second. All right, this thing is in my living room. It's sitting on the couch, but it's not just sitting on the couch. It's like bouncing up and down, and it's uncomfortable on the couch. Now there's a weird visual image in there. And when you got a visual and it's connected to something you know, the likelihood of remembering it is greater. Like we talked about those roadways, you start making multiple pathways for you to go back and grab that stuff you need to remember.
I see. And it's kind of like a muscle too. Like the more you work your memory muscle, the more it's easier to remember things.
Well, that's the thing. Once you have the strategy,
Yeah,
You just use the strategy. It's second nature,
exactly.
you know? So yeah, it's working it out.
For sure. Now, can you give me the same example that you just did, but how can someone remember someone's name better? Someone who's bad with remembering names, can you give us an example?
Okay. I'm not good at this, so I don't know. I'll give you, I'll give you something that I am aware works. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I
Gotcha.
still mess it up sometimes too. Easy thing to do, I think, a lot of times, is repeat their name back to them the second they say it to you. Hey, I'm Mike. Hi, Mike. Pleasure to meet you. Okay? Because one of those things in your brain is giving it repetitions. All right? And I don't know if you've ever seen a thing called the forgetting curve.
No.
You're aware of it. So the forgetting curve kind of works like this. When you first get information that you're not familiar with, within, I'm trying to remember the time, it's probably within a couple hours, you've lost like 60% of that information
Wow.
if you don't repeat it relatively quickly. It just, you basically, you keep the gist and you lose all the details. Um, so it's one of those things where like, hey, Mike, and Mike is a common name. Like you hear Mike,
10 times a
Mike, whatever. Like it's not a weird name that stands out. It's nothing that's going to jump out in mind. But you hear Mike, hey Mike, how are you? Like, give Mike a repetition, get it stuck in there a little bit. And then the other thing I'm going to say is pick out something characteristic of Mike. Mike is this. Again, I don't know what to tell you what Mike is because I don't know
Yeah.
what Mike looks like or something like that. But like, just tie Mike to like some defining characteristic.
And that makes sense. Like correlate him to something. Let's say Mike was wearing a hat. You
Yeah.
remember the hat and then you remember Mike.
Uh huh.
Kind of like the house
Yep.
theory.
Yep. It's the same thing. It's like
Yeah,
it's all like, yeah, memory. It's hard, but it's simple. It's a simple idea, not always easy to pull off, I guess.
for sure.
You
That's
know, just if you
like
can
that muscle.
connect, you're good. Sorry.
For sure. And
Yeah.
then that makes sense. The 60% of things that we take in, we forget because I'll read a book, a chapter or two, and I'll forget everything I read, but I took a couple underlines here and I'll go back, and those are the only things
Yep.
that I could restate out of the whole chapter.
See,
It's
but the weird thing with that memory is you can restate those things, but then what'll happen is once you restate those things, all of a sudden they might link to something that you didn't remember 2 seconds ago. But all of a sudden you're like, oh, and then this happened too.
mhm.
And that's where like memory's a little weird. Sometimes you take stuff in that you don't realize you took in.
And then it pops up randomly in spontaneous moments.
Yeah.
So that's happened to me as well. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, so I want to talk about also um, sports a little bit because I know
Okay.
you're pretty involved with sports. If you see some athlete that's either burnt out or not having the best game, how would you
Okay.
take like something you've learned through psychology to like give them advice if they're struggling in the game or something?
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to take something. I don't know if I'm going to have like a specific theory or anything like that for
Yeah.
you. But I think one of the things is like give him a reset. Let him sit down for a second. Let him step away and maybe just clear their head for a second. Because a lot of athletes, when they're playing, if they're a good athlete, like if they're physically a good athlete, the issue isn't something physical. A lot of times, it's up here,
Hmm.
and it's I'm thinking about too much about what I have to do. You're a wrestler, like I'm sure. I'm going to guess. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't talked to you about wrestling, but I'm going to guess that when you were sitting there thinking, like, okay, I got to shoot here, I got to move my arm here, I got to get underneath that, I got to move this leverage, I got to do that. When you're thinking about all the steps,
Lost the
you
match.
like kind of get in your own head, like, am I doing it right? Am I doing that? And when you just let your body flow and do its thing, and you like, if you ever hear me by volleyball practice, kids used to make fun of me for saying this. I've been let your body do its thing. And sometimes it's letting a kid just pulling them away and just being like, just take a breather, go get a drink, walk away, clear your head for a second, and like come back and just play the game. Go have fun. I've done that when our team's been doing bad. I'll start practice by just being like, all right, guys, you're thinking too much. Roll the balls out, make teams play on your own for 20 minutes. Like, don't like try to coach each other. Don't try to do any strategy. Just play the way you play. Because I think that's a bit, at the end of the day, that's why we do it. We do it to play. We do it to have fun. And when we forget to play and start making it work, sometimes we get too caught up here. We don't just let it flow.
Exactly. How can someone get into that flow state to play at their best?
So, flow, you're on flow state on me. Okay.
Well,
No. It's a cool, like that is like, I don't even know if you knew that's like a term in what's called positive psychology.
perfect.
Okay. So flow is the idea. It's created by this guy. While if I showed you his name, you wouldn't be able to pronounce it. It's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is his name. He has a whole book on flow, and he has research on flow and this whole idea that like we get into these states where we're just kind of like lost in whatever we're doing. You ever been there where you're just like lost in it? You kind of lose sense of time and you're just like focused in on doing that task.
1000%.
Yeah. How do we get somebody there? I mean, I think a lot of it comes when we're finding joy in it. You know, when you're finding joy in doing it, and when and you realize that like the process is worth it. And you know you want to keep working on it. You get lost in this flow state and things are just coming and you get into it like, you know, business people might get into just like flow of ideas and like all of a sudden all the everything's working up here to like market a product, you know, and like athletes do it where they're just like in that moment where they're just playing. Oh geez, my lights automatically come off here. I gotta go get them. Yeah, oh there we go. Okay.
The motion, right?
Yeah, they're motion censored, so if I don't move for a while, they just turn off.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, do I know how to get somebody in a flow state? Like, I don't know if I can make. I think it's kind of like internal. Like, but sometimes it's just let them do their thing.
And I agree. I think joy in like the process, enjoying every step of the process is a big part of it. When I look at the process in wrestling, when I had the most joy, I don't look at the clock. I'm just in the practice room doing my thing.
Yep.
Which makes sense what you said, you know.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of
It's
sense.
like what do you call it? I tell my kids this every year when they're graduating high. I'm like, you're gonna graduate and like you're gonna celebrate June 25th or whatever that day is. But like the reason why you celebrate is because you showed up last year in February when it was cold and you grinded through those cold, like dark months. Showed up here every day. You didn't want to be here and there was no sun. You're doing blah, whatever stuff, but like you made it. You pushed through the tough stuff. It also reminds me of an interview I listened to with Jonah Hill a while back. So Jonah Hill was talking about, he was talking about when he directed his first movie. And he's like, I thought I'd be excited for the movie to come out, to rap and everything. He's like, I went into like almost a state of depression. I was sad when it was over. And I realized that like the joy of making the movie isn't the movie at the end. It's all the days we had to go work through shooting and work through, you know, I had to direct people and I had to reshoot and I had to do this and that. And like the process of making it is where the joy is.
That's why they say, I guess, fall in love with the process, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And majority of the time, I think you're in the process, especially literally someone in my case where you have big goals and aspirations that they're going to take years to accomplish. You have to fall in love with the process because you're going to be in process mode most of the time.
Yeah.
So
and you have to accept the fact that the process is going to suck sometimes. The process is going to be terrible some days. And things aren't going your way. And like, that's still part of the process. And when you learn to be content with the process, you accept the pain.
Exactly.
You know?
And I think that's what might lead someone into that flow state where the time just keeps moving and they're not even worried about it too much. Yeah. Which I saw a video a couple days ago where it said the best like dopamine, the real dopamine that you produce, that you should produce is when you're working towards something or you're in the process. Do you study dopamine or do you guys?
We talk about it. We talk about it as a pleasure neurotransmitter. And that's kind of the idea. it's a pleasure neurotransmitter. Most people think of it, it's like sex, drugs, food, like stuff
Yeah,
like that. It's
social
just
media, like those dopamine
social
hits.
media, like every swipe is a dopamine hit. Like
Exactly.
it's cheap dopamine, but it's dopamine, and we love video games are dopamine hit, like all that stuff. Anything you find pleasure in is dopamine hit, which is fine, but and like those are all they a lot of times they put dopamine in this category of like, it's this like addict thing. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
hear that like addicts are chasing a dopamine hit, stuff like that. And I
exactly.
you say that, but you can use dopamine to your advantage. Because what happens when you do experience dopamine and what dopamine does for your brain, and this is where we get back to that process. When you are enjoying the process, when you find pleasure in the process, like what dopamine does is dopamine opens up like your ability to learn. All right. Because it doesn't just do pleasure, it does learning, it does memory, it does a lot of other things in different parts of the brain. The reason why you sit in a class or you work at something, you do something, and why you learn something in one class and not the other. Well, it's not the only reason why, but like we're going biological. One of the reasons why is because that class brings you joy. You walk into that room and you have some form of pleasure, some form of joy. And because you have that joy, all of a sudden your ability to learn and take that stuff in is enhanced. So dopamine allows those learning centers to like be open more. So you walk out of that class, be like, oh, I learned a lot from that class. Did you like that class? Absolutely. Why do you learn from stuff you like? It's because, a little bit of it's biology at least.
For sure. Would you say dopamine also, does dopamine produce like motivation as well?
Yeah,
I would say so, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Like again, people, the brain, like it's complicated, it's complex, but
Hmm.
it's real simple in what it wants. The brain is kind of lazy. It If you give it pleasure, it'll want pleasure. If you give it a habit, it'll want to keep doing the habit. So if you give it the right type of pleasure and you create the right type of habits, the brain's just like, okay, this is what we do. You want to start working out every day, start doing it. Day one, the brain's gonna be like, I don't like doing this. This sucks. I'm not used to this whole thing.
Hmm.
But by day 10, 15, whatever it is, all of a sudden the brain starts getting into like, okay, this is just what we do every day. And I'm okay with that.
It's
So,
really just those conscious choices, I guess, right? Choosing to stay consistent, just like anything else.
yeah.
So let's dive deep more into the conscious and like subconscious mind. What we kind of opened with,
Okay.
where you said there's a lot of things that shape us that we're not too conscious about that we
Okay.
know. How could someone kind of do this self work if you have advice how someone could dive into themselves? And if not, you could just like brushly top
I
what you
mean,
know, but
I like, how does somebody do their self work?
yeah,
Um,
or to identify the things that have shaped them into who they are, whether they know it or they're not aware of it.
it's a lot. It's a lot of looking into yourself, man. I say this a lot. I think a lot of people could benefit from therapy. I think most people could go sit down with a therapist and learn a lot about themselves. And that's where you got to do the work to underlie. I mean, could you sit there by yourself and like kind of unravel all the layers and go back to your childhood and stuff? Maybe,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I think almost everybody could benefit from it. And I think that's something that when you sit down and take an hour out of every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is, to focus on yourself and talk about those things, you have an external person who is um, objective, hearing you talk, and trained to recognize your patterns and maybe recognize, like, okay, why does this keep coming up? Or why, when this comes up, do you start to get angry or happy or sad or whatever it is?
Hmm.
And it might be bigger than just like that annoys me
And
because
I
you
guess
have
it,
that deep thing. And that's,
for sure. And I guess the therapist's job is to just ask the right questions and try to like peel all the layers back
yeah.
with someone and get them
I
to
mean,
real.
a good therapist hopefully sees you objectively and yeah, can pick apart your patterns
Yeah,
and
I've never
recognize what's going on.
for sure. I've never sat with a therapist. I've sat with a sports psychologist. I interviewed one.
Okay,
He's the sports psychologist for Rutgers wrestling team.
cool.
Um, and his work is kind of like a therapist though, but
Oh yeah.
obviously for athletes. And it's funny, like the things he says, he just asks questions about like yourself, and it makes you open your eyes up to things that you would never even think about. Like
Yep.
why is a wrestler so nervous to compete where all they do is train? They're way more prepared than they even know. Like
Sure.
the little things, and it's just like changing your perspective,
Uh-huh.
which is I agree. I think people should do that more
I think it's a great, I think it could be a great thing for almost anybody.
for
Sit
sure.
down and that's where you're gonna do the work to learn about yourself.
Definitely. And my biggest regret is not taking your class in high school, but
Okay.
we used the brain.
Biggest regret, like, gee, then I think you got it okay.
Yeah, I did. I had a good high school, but we use our brains every day, so it's
100%.
smart to educate someone on the brain. If you could tell someone about their brain to help them function with their daily activities to make their life a little more easy, holistically, what's something that you think everyone could take away from a little fact about their brain?
I'm gonna go back to the plasticity thing. I think that's their greatest superpower. Like I really do. I go, oh, there's
They're good.
L for a period.
Perfect.
I think plasticity, if we recognize the fact that your brain can be changed and molded, and like as much as it's in charge of you, you're in charge of it. Like you want to change something about yourself, give yourself the experience. Just give yourself the experience. Make the brain experience it so it becomes habitual. And the other thing, sleep. Yeah, that's the other thing I would say.
Elaborate.
Um,
What's why is sleep so important to us?
Sleep resets you, man. Sleep, like we take sleep for granted. There are so many people that push off sleep for more important things. I'm included. Like I don't think I am not completely practicing what I preach. I could probably get more sleep and better sleep, but you want to maximize your brain, like watch some of the things out there on sleep. See what happens. Like you wonder why you might just be in a bed mood long term. Like go get yourself a good night's sleep. Seriously, like go like get a good night's sleep for a couple days in a row,
Hmm.
and that mood changes. Um, even if you're in a brain fog and you can't figure stuff out, like again, and as a high school teacher, I look at it and I see beginning of the year, I usually have a bunch of kids who I can't say everybody, but there's a lot of kids who are excited to start the year. They have all these grand aspirations. I'll learn, I'm gonna do great, I'm gonna do this. All of a sudden, I start getting to this time of year. Really, it's post holidays, which I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But like motivation's dropped, you know, really not working, not figuring stuff out as easily. And I sit there and I wonder, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I come back to sleep sometimes and I go, okay, this kid who's potentially been playing video games up every night. I can't say it's every kid, but there are kids who do that. You know it. You were here.
Hmm.
All right. And they're going to bed at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then waking up at 6:30 in the morning for school. You've been sleep deprived now for 4 months, 5 months. Like what happens is like you don't have a chance. That's when those brain connections get made when you're sleeping. When you learn, that's why babies sleep so much. They're learning so much stuff. The brain's reconnecting itself. That's when you file away memories. I like to think of it like, this is going to be an analogy I use in my class too. You learn stuff every day. You're going through stuff and you're learning things. And basically, you don't have time to put stuff away. So as you learn stuff, it's like clothes you're just throwing in your closet. At the end of every day, you got this big pile of clothes. When you go to sleep, what your brain does while you're sleeping is goes and grabs all those clothes, hangs them, they hang them up, they fold them, they put them away. And when you wake up in the morning, ideally, if you get the full night, you go through all your REM cycles, you got a clean, fresh closet to put more stuff into. Now, if you don't get that sleep, you got a pile of clothes just sitting over there. There's just a pile, like there's this little pile of clothes that's still left that hasn't been cleaned up. So the next day you go through your day and you throw that pile up, that you pile more stuff on there, and then you don't get enough sleep again. And that pile at the end, when you wake up in the morning, is a little bit bigger. And every day it gets a little bit bigger. And now you got this messy closet that you're trying to throw new stuff into, but it's not organized. So you're not really remembering stuff, and you're not really like, because it hasn't been organized and it can't get organized because you can't catch up on it. And what sleep does, it allows you to organize all that stuff.
It's very interesting. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of have to give yourself time to develop what you've learned, let it sink in.
Yeah.
And that makes sense why babies sleep so much, because they're new to the world. If they got everything to learn.
Yep, everything's learned.
For sure. What's some of how important is a child's, like, for their brain to develop? How much of an impact does it have on who they become as an adult? Their environment, their culture, the way they see their parents interact, like all the little things.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can go down. Those are a lot of roads we can go down with this one. I don't know. Where do you want to go? Because that's kind of a broad question. I think I can go. I think I like. I mean, how does a kid develop? Like,
I would want to touch on how their brain develops, and
okay.
I guess the beliefs and how it forms like their thoughts, kind of how it shapes their brain.
Okay.
Down a couple roads that way.
I mean, we have a lot of different things that can shape the brain. I mean, day one. So here's something that is pretty important to shaping the brain early on, which again is something that people don't think of as a shape the brain. The average person doesn't think of it as shape the brain sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's physical touch. Like early on, a child, like a baby, needs to feel actual physical skin to skin contact from parents.
Wow.
And that actually promotes brain development. It promotes the flow of something called oxytocin, which is a hormone that creates connection, it creates trust, but it also promotes brain development. I know there's studies out there. I can't quote them right now because I don't have them off the top of my head, but I know they've tied it to intellectual impact and things like that, not getting physically held early on and not having that comfort from a parent is actually it has a major impact.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're going to go first thing, hold your child. There was an experiment with monkeys done in the 50s where they actually took monkeys from their parents when they were born. And they gave them only two monkeys. There were two parents, two fake parents. So one was soft, cuddly parent. It was wrapped in a towel-like thing. And it was just like a doll. And the other was a doll that was wire, but it had a food source too. What they found was that the monkeys, 20 hours, 20 whatever hours of the day, basically the whole time they weren't feeding, they were clung to that soft, cuddly mother. And the wire mother, they went to just for food and then came back and just clung to that soft, cuddly mother. The scary part about this is what happened to the monkeys when they got into adulthood. Okay? When these monkeys were released into adulthood, first they tried integrating them to monkeys that had been socialized and grew up around other monkeys the whole time. They couldn't do it. They would avoid contact. They were known to actually those monkeys self-harmed. They bit at their own skin, ripped their own fur out. The other one was they neglected when they did have children. If they did have children later on, they actually neglected their own children.
Wow.
Because they never had that person. You think about people in our society, all you need is a hug. Get down to the really, not a joke. You're going to get down to the basics. We can give them the best education and the best this and the best that and all those things. But I don't know. My take on it is if that kid feels loved and they know they feel loved, chances are they're going to do all right for themselves in most cases. But if they don't get that early on, they don't get that love, they don't get that nurturing, they don't get that feeling that they're wanted and desired and meaningful, like they're behind the eight ball the rest of their life.
Hmm.
That's kind of a scary thing.
And do you think people could change that throughout their lives and like kind of rewire that? If you want to say neuroplasticity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it'll take a lot. It'll take a lot of work. Like that, I feel like that's one that's like one of those like early childhood scars that could stay with somebody.
Hmm.
It's not easy to break. Again, I can't say for sure anything's going to happen, but like, yeah, they're going to have to experience love with somebody because the tough part becomes when they do get older, when people do grow up and they never experience that love from early on. They don't know what that feels like when somebody gives it to them and they're in their teens, say. There's a struggle with how to respond. You know what I mean?
Is it because and they're not familiar with that whole all those emotions, maybe, right? Or that whole
Yeah.
yeah.
Like big emotions are tough for people to deal with.
Even though
Like
it will
whether,
benefit them,
what's that?
even though the emotions that are being presented to them will benefit them and make them
Yeah.
feel better, but they just don't know how to accept it, kind of.
Yeah. If you've never felt love before and all of a sudden at 20 years old, you're feeling love for the first time, your body's doing a lot of weird stuff that you're not used to. You know what I mean? And like, it might feel kind of good, but you're like, this isn't my normal. Like, what's this person doing? Then the thinking starts to happen like, is this really it? Or is this like, you know,
Hmm.
I haven't been able to trust anybody else in my life. Like, how do I create this habit? How do I put that guard down potentially?
And that comes with
Before it can
time.
get a little, what's that?
And that comes with time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
prove it. And if someone truly loves you if you went through a neglected childhood and then somebody genuinely starts showing you love like later on in life, like there's a lot of barriers you probably have to fight through. And most, again, I can't say everybody,
Hmm.
like some people might be open and like I just don't know. But like a lot of times there's some barriers that you're gonna have to fight through. And that person who loves you is gonna have to sit there and prove
Yeah.
a lot. They're going to prove it. They're going to have to prove it. And you're going to put up walls and you're going to sit there and be like, I don't trust you. I don't like it. I'm pushing you away. This is weird. And you just got to keep showing up and deal with the fact that they're going to have to go through that. And that, like, now we're going down like an area of like relationships, but that's like relationship stuff. Like, you got to, just because your partner's being a jerk to you about something, you know, we'll all be a jerk about something. It's like recognizing, like trying to sit back and understand why that this isn't just happening out of the blue. And this, I guess, is getting back to also like how that childhood trains us. Like, why is this thing setting them off? What are they unfamiliar with? What are they uncomfortable with? What kind of experience have they had in the past? Like, is creating this emotion in them. So,
That reminds me of a movie with Robin Williams. He's not the character specifically I'm talking about, but
okay.
it's this younger guy, and he meets this girl, and this girl loves him, and she says it. But he's like, he had a tough childhood,
Yep.
and he can't.
It's Good Will Hunting, by the way.
Yes, Good Will
Yeah,
Hunting.
I love that movie.
Yeah, so that reminds me of it because there's an opportunity to be loved, but he doesn't know how to be loved. Maybe,
No,
right?
he was an orphan. His
Yeah,
parents left him when he was a kid. So
exactly.
the
Yeah.
first, so here's the groundwork you think of like as a childhood. If the first people who are supposed to love and take care of me and keep me alive in the most basic sense, don't do that, what's like core memory number one?
Yeah.
You know, that's a tough one. When somebody else tries to show that, like core memory number one is like those people left me.
Yeah. And then your trust is out the window probably too because
Yep.
I have a tough time trusting people, but
That's where you go into like developmental theory. You go to like Freud's theories, which I know are like a lot of them are debunked, but like I think there's still merit in some of the stuff Freud had. You go to a guy like Eric Erickson, We talked about going every stage of life as a conflict. Um, like it always starts with trust is number one. Trust is stage one. And after that, you develop the other things, but trust is always the first one to show.
For sure. How do you are you educated on stress and how stress correlates everything in our brain, how it affects the way we act?
A little bit.
What's some
I
like
could give you a rundown of some things. I mean,
yeah, that's what I would
based.
love to hear. Some
So,
ideas
okay,
of
so stress is a weird thing. Okay, because I excuse me. Um, stress is weird in that like we think the way we think about stress is how stress comes out in us. You know what I mean? Like when you're experiencing stress, so stress, what is stress reaction? Um, it's basically like inflated, like heart rate, breathing, like changes physiologically that we interpret in whatever way. So we talk about stress, like, do you need stress to perform well? Like, yeah, like when you wrestled, like you probably wrestled your best when you were in an environment that created some stress.
exactly.
Like stress can
Well,
be a good thing.
it made me focus more, like gave me what I needed to perform the way I needed to
100%.
perform.
Because a stress reaction is like, it's a fight or flight response. And what a fight or flight response is doing, and a lot of people, like, a lot of my students, I have to like make this clear. Like when we talk about fight or flight response, this is not an actual like body response to get up and run or fight. This is what your body does in preparation for those things. So like when you're about to go out and wrestle, your body's going into fight or flight. Like I know I'm going one on one with another dude, and like
Somebody's gonna die.
there's nobody else out there. Like it's on
Yeah,
me. Like that's frightening. But what
100%.
happens in that fight or flight response, and what we have to recognize, like I like to think of it like stress. Again, I'm not always good at it, but like stress is a call to action. Stress is your body telling you do something. And a lot of us who get stressed out because we're sitting at home doing nothing, like literally like go do something. Like go sit down and do like 20 push-ups real quick.
Yeah,
It'll help. But you're basically what's happening, why you needed that stress and why you might have performed even better when you had some stress on you was not by accident. Your heart is what it's doing. It's the reason why your heart rate's high. It's pumping oxygenated blood to your muscles. It's making sure your muscles are the strongest they could possibly be. You said your vision gets focused. Yeah, your pupils dilate in a way they don't normally dilate. It improves your vision. It makes your body peak for that moment in time. It can't be peak all the time or else you're going to have a heart attack. But it makes it peak for that moment in time so that you can perform, so that you can fight off a danger or you can run away from a danger better than you ever would in any other situation. And it's basically the body saying we're surviving this. Like this is how we're going to survive this. So like yeah, stress isn't is it bad for some people? Absolutely. But is it a bad thing in general? No. We need it to do our best.
for sure. And I think there's different perspectives. You could see it as stress. That's one thing the sports psychologist told me about was like when you get stressed before something,
Mm-hmm.
like exactly what you said, it's preparing you to perform at your best, but your brain is aware that your heart rate is racing, you're getting a little sweaty, and you might
Uh-huh.
interpret it that, oh, I'm not gonna do well because I'm stressed, but
Sure.
really,
It's a battle between two parts of your brain. Okay. And like simple, there's an amygdala, which is like a lower level part of your brain that's like non-conscious. They call it part of what they say the reptilian brain or the lizard brain. And what the amygdala is doing is searching for like fear and aggression and all that stuff. It's trying to keep you safe by looking for those things that are fearful and creating that like fear emotion in you. And then you have the frontal lobe, which is your rational thinking. And they're kind of in battle at all times because like the amygdala is saying let's do this. And the frontal lobe's like, okay, chill. Let's look at the situation. Let's think about this. Let's see how we can use what's going on. Maybe we don't have to act so quickly and so rashly. Um, and that's what you do. Okay, I'm in a wrestling match. I got to use this to my advantage. I got to take a second and think about it. I can't just like go, because if you go out and you start just like throwing a shot any old time because you're like in this heated state, and I'm sure you've wrestled guys who come out like a ball of fire, they're like, I'm gonna take Angelo down, and they like recklessly throw a shot because they come out like a freight train trying to just like take you out, and all you got to do is be like, you got the rational mind working, you sidestep, and before he knows it, you're behind him and it's over. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's an interesting topic. So the amygdala, does that correlate? I guess it correlates to back centuries to our even our ancestors when
It's every animal you've ever seen.
we all have that
Yeah, we
stress.
have this at the top of our brainstem. We have this like this amygdala, this hypothalamus, these things that are like they call it the limbic system, and it's just like this area of your brain that it's responsible for like pleasure and survival and like it's like yeah, it's your survival spot. We're gonna
And it,
do the things. We're gonna prep the body to like live right now.
Mhm. And it also like is the predict if try to trust to predict everything, right?
I don't know how much it tries to predict. I think it's a little more reactionary.
Okay.
All right. It might be seeking out, like, be aware of things that could be dangerous,
Hmm.
but I think prediction is usually a higher level brain function, whereas like the amygdala and that whole area is more like, I need to live right now. I need to survive right now. I need to eat. I need to, I need to reproduce. I need to do all those things to just like survive.
Exactly. And then I guess our ancestors had different fears than we did, but I could say we could say like I think social acceptance or anxiety is a good example. I saw a video, and this might be false, but I want to ask you
Okay.
about it. The reason like we need to we someone wants to be involved or wants to fit in is because our ancestors had to fit into the group to survive. Is that something that's
Yeah,
like
no, I'd agree with that. That's a survival instinct. This is like evolutionary stuff. Like this is built into us to be part
yeah?
of something.
So
I
the
think.
amygdala is programs from even back to our ancestors, where something today that's not so life threatening that we don't have to be so anxious or worried about naturally triggers us to be because our ancestors naturally were. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like,
wow?
yeah, yeah, we have stuff built into our DNA, like long term, about why we act the way we do, and again, that need to be part of something for most people is a survival instinct. And like, I like to think of it like this: like, your brain doesn't always, when it feels that stress response and it feels that fear thing going on, it at its core, at its like base level, it doesn't always recognize like differentiate stresses. So it doesn't be like that's a worse stress than that. Like, and you have some people who have like social anxiety or something like that, that there's no obvious immediate fear present, meaning there's not like a fire going on right now. But that doesn't diminish the fact that their brain's interpreting it the same way someone without that might experience a fire going on. The brain just recognizes there's stress in the area, there's stress in the environment. Like, let's feel stress.
It's true the brain can't tell the difference between like a real experience or like one that's like you imagine. It just focuses on like the
I
emotion.
mean, you're gonna experience some form of stress. Now, can you have a more heightened fight or flight response in situations? I mean, I'd say so. Like, I think like if you're faced with like life and death versus something a little more benign, like you'll have a more intense fight or flight, but in reality, it's still creating fight or flight.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And that ties to the like sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system.
absolutely.
Which
Yeah.
one is which? The parasympathetic is like the relaxed one, or
Yes. So I like to think of it like a simple way. Again, another thing I use in my class is sympathetic is, and then now this becomes a heightened fight or flight too, is what happens because it's all peripheral nervous system. So like it's connected to that amygdala and hypothalamus area up here. But like in reality, when we talk about the sympathetic nervous system, it's all the nerves going out to the rest of your body. Okay. Sympathetic nervous system basically creates the fight or flight response throughout the body. So you're sitting at the edge of a plane about to jump out, right? It's going nuts, right? That's sympathetic. Sympathetic keeps you alive in the moment, like all that stuff. Like it's going crazy. Your heart's beating out of your mind and all that stuff.
Which would
Jump
be
out of the plane. You're
fight
in
or
full
flight.
free fall. What's up?
That would be fight or flight.
That's fight or flight. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Because it's like I've got to do something to get me out of this situation. And usually our choices are fight or flee. So you jump out of the plane. You're falling to earth, and you're oh God, like this is crazy. And you're freaking out. Sympathetic nervous system going nuts. The way we remember this is all of a sudden, at some point, this dude on your back's gonna be like, bro, you're gonna have to pull that cord, like, we're hitting 8,000 feet, pull the cord, let me
Yeah.
tell you when. And then all of a sudden, you yank the cord, and what happens?
Beautiful. You could see.
Parachute comes up, you start floating. That's your parasympathetic. The parasympathetic's your parachute. It slows everything down. It brings everything back to earth. It brings everything back to normal. And they actually talk about, I think, what is it? I'm pretty sure we talked, I think off camera was when about how you watched Andrew Huberman.
Mhm.
And he said, I want to say it's him. I might be somebody else, but I want to say it's him. He talked about accessing the parasympathetic nervous system when you're in a stress situation. And there's like specific breathing you can do. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No,
Like
but
the
I know
way
he talks about that, like breath work.
Yeah.
A
The
lot.
way to take a breath in, and when you think you got your lungs full, you add a little bit,
Mm,
and then you like push it all out. And what that's doing is that is actually accessing your parasympathetic to like slow everything down.
wow.
And it's like breathing technique and things like that. I know can access the parasympathetic, so we can act in a more focused, rational state when in that fight or flight.
Sure. Yeah, it's cool stuff, man. I love talking about that. We could wrap some things up soon.
Okay.
Um, before we do, how have you seen like school and like teaching kind of shift the past like 19 years? And if you want to tie psychology into this, that'd be great.
It'll it'll probably come in, but like there it is. That's the biggest change. So I started teaching in 2007, and that was the advent of the iPhone 1.
Mm.
Literally, my entire educational career has been iPhone 1 to present.
Yeah.
And this thing does a lot of good. It also doesn't do a lot of good. But it's changed our attention spans for things, I think. Whereas I had things a couple of years back that I would do with my class, and I had certain demonstrations, and kids would be like, "Yeah, that's awesome." Like now, I better get it done quick and move on to something else, change, and I like. So I think a lot of attention span has changed in education, um, which isn't necessarily bad because sometimes we start transitioning from like years ago, there were times when teachers would just sit up there and talk and talk and talk and talk. And every day it was just teacher talking and kids listening and taking notes.
Mhm.
And again, I can't say that I'm not guilty of doing that some days because I am, because I'm making a shift away from that sometimes too. But um, giving me perspective just in terms of trying to think about, okay, what's something I can do that'll like bring everybody in to doing this thing or experiencing this. And some topics give way to it more than others. Other topics are just like tough to like give them an experience that'll keep them engaged. But that's the biggest thing. It's like, I see a lot of the need to like shift throughout a period. And we need to jump. I have this thing we're doing, and then we're going to stop. We're going to get it done. We're going to move on to a different thing, and we're going to either change where you're looking or change, if you got to get up and move a little bit, or you got to do that. And I think that's become a big difference in education.
Trying to keep them engaged, consistent.
Yeah, keeping students. Well, I mean, again, when this thing is in your pocket, like I can't, like it's frustrating having it available, but it's also like it's hard to blame a teenage kid be like, hey, I know in your pocket is like all your friends, all your social media, your TV, and all your video games.
Everything to distract them.
Yo, I got something cool up here that has to do with psychology. Like,
Yeah.
like it's tough, and that really has been 100% the biggest change is learning how to navigate that on the fly when there isn't any proven thing that says like this is how to do it. Because we're all still part of the experiment.
Exactly.
Like it's still this thing's gonna change and it's gonna become more advanced and this and that and like yeah, we're still part of the experiment. Like we don't
For sure.
we don't know where this is going and what maybe this is the best thing in the world like long term. I don't know, but like we're
Yeah.
still part of the experiment.
100% because it has its pros and cons, but it definitely I've seen it impact me to the point where my focus is not as good as it used to be.
Sure.
Do you guys you guys cover focus?
Oh, it's well, I'm focused with that thing.
No,
It's
focus. Like, do you educate on focus and have it?
well, I educate when I talk about memory. If we get back to the memory thing, the one of the biggest things is attention. Like you have like levels of memory. You have sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory. Okay? And everything goes into sensory memory, which only lasts between like 0 to like 3 to 4 seconds. That's your window to pay attention to something. If you don't pay attention, you've missed it.
Mm.
Which is like a tough thing. Like that's where like multitasking, like people are like, I can multitask. You can't because even if you think you're paying attention to two things at once, when my attention's down here, it's here. I'm losing whatever's happening for that moment. And even when I switch, whatever's up there, I'm losing whatever's down here.
Exactly.
So, so you have 0 to 4 seconds to get it into you to pay attention to it. Once you pay attention to it, it goes into short-term memory. Now, a lot of people think short-term memory is like it lasts like a day or two. In reality, short-term memory, if it's not repeated in this time frame, you got about 30 seconds to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get it. Even if it's just saying back to yourself, you kind of restart the 30 seconds. But it's like you have that moment to like think about it, and that's limited too. You only have about 7 items you can keep in there.
Wow.
So you have that moment to like keep that in there and then do something with it to move it into long-term memory. Once you can get it to long-term, and that's where like doing that house thing I mentioned earlier works. Like if you could take that short-term memory stuff, put it in your house, you've essentially taken it, you've put it into long-term memory.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's in long-term memory, it's usually pretty stable in there. It might be tough to go back and get, but like it's stable in there somewhere. So that's when we talk about focus, like that's kind of what I get into is like that attention. And if we have selective attention and there are things that happen all around us all the time that if we're not focused on it, they happen, they go in, they go out, and they're gone. We don't even see it happening.
No. That's kind of like the reticular activating system too, right?
Okay. So that's, yeah, what about it?
Like
what
what you
about the
focus
reticular?
on, I'm not too educated on it, but what
Okay.
you focus on grows. Like the red car theory, if you focus on more red
Say that
cars,
one again?
the red car theory, like if you focus on more red cars, you're gonna find more red cars
Sure.
or the
Okay.
color.
Uh,
But I guess it all kind of ties in.
yeah, so like what I know about the reticular activating system, it's really like an alertness, like it's an unconscious alertness tool. Like you just like pick up on certain things. I like to think that like it alerts you to like um even like a fire alarm going off. Like you'll like your attention will be taken there. Because I know also with the reticular activating system, that's an area of the brain where like if it gets damaged, you're in a coma.
Wow.
You know?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like deep in the brain. But like it's your attention, it's your alertness, things like that play a
Mhm.
role.
That's cool. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
If you could give advice to your seniors before they go to college, or some seniors who are debating if they want to go to college in their careers, what's some
Okay.
advice you would give them?
Okay, so is it advice for seniors like picking a career, or is it advice for just
Yeah,
like
let's do like a two-part question.
okay,
What advice would you give to seniors who aren't sure if they want to go to college and are unsure of what the next steps to take are?
Um, what's my advice for a senior who isn't sure about college? I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if you're unsure and you don't have a plan for yourself, um, I think community college isn't a terrible idea. If you want to see what college is all about and get a taste, going to a place like Brookdale, like
Hmm.
Brookdale's legit. Like people don't
Yeah,
realize that. Like Brookdale is like you're walking in there, you're not getting some like, people sit there and go, it's like 13th grade or whatever, but like those professors are no joke. Like they have legitimate degrees and they know their stuff. And like it's not like some joke thing. It is a legit education. And I feel like sometimes young kids kind of play it off because it's community college. Um, I mean, I said college is expensive, dude.
yeah,
And like if you know your path and you want to live that, like you want to experience that and you can do it, like do it. Like go live it. Like, you're willing to take on whatever, like it's part of the experience.
exactly.
But if you're unsure and you don't know if you don't know if you want to go to college and you want to see what college is like, I mean, I think taking community college classes isn't a terrible idea to see what it is. The other thing, like the other thing that people don't consider is college is always going to be there.
Yeah, true.
Like it is. I know sometimes for a lot of people it's tough to be like, once I didn't go, like for me to start up again is tough. Um, but it is. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be an option for you if you do want to go. Um,
Exactly.
so again, it's tough for me to tell somebody who doesn't know what they want to do what to do.
That's a good
Um,
point.
like it is. It's like I I
Yeah,
can tell you what I think would be the best idea, but I don't know that like
no,
it
I
works.
think you gave me what I was looking for out of that question. I think
Yeah,
community college is a good idea, and also like I think people just try to follow what their friends are doing and
sure.
go to college because Johnny down the block is going to college.
Hey,
You know?
I see a lot, and again, I don't know the motivation. I can't talk to anybody individually, but I know there's a lot of people who, and you might know it from, you were in high school a lot more recently than me, but I know there's a lot of students in high school like to be able to post that they're going to some cool sounding school.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
it's
let's
an
be real,
it's
college
an
makes it
expensive
that way
post.
nowadays. What's up?
It's an expensive post right there.
It is, but like is it worth it to you? Like that's really what it comes down to. Is I can't tell you not to go.
Hmm.
It might be expensive for you, but it might work out in the long run. Like you might meet the love of your life there. You might make the best friends you ever had.
True.
You might get an education that you couldn't have gotten anywhere else there. And you might have figured out a lot about your stuff going and living at that place. So like I can't fault you for trying it. Gotta be ready to pay for it. Like that's,
Yeah,
I mean, college is expensive now, let's be real, but like, and you might be paying off student loans for a long time, but if you're willing to take that on, like, I don't know. I'm very into like letting people have the experiences they, like, you should have the experiences you want to have.
mhm.
And if you want to try, like, and again, some people will sit there and they want to make the post, and it sounds cool because I know that that's a big thing for people. Like,
Yeah,
I'm going to Clemson, baby. Like,
yeah,
that's cool. And like, if you go visit any one of those big time schools, like, I get it. You're getting an experience. You're going to a football game, and it's everybody's there, and people are having a great time, and you know, you're basically in a city of 18 to 24-year-olds. Like
it's
that's tough for an 18-year-old to turn down.
100%, especially if your parents are in the position financially to cover it, where you don't have to
Yeah,
worry. You know?
absolutely. Your parents or you're willing to ready to take that responsibility on.
Mhm.
I mean, you might be 30 something and be like, "Oh my God, I still got all this college debt. What am I even paying for anymore?" But it also might be worth it in the end. Like I don't know. Like you don't know how an experience is going to benefit you or not benefit you until you have the experience. Like that's what really as simple as it comes down to.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
true. All right, great. I think we covered a lot of stuff. This was
Yeah.
awesome. I'm happy we had this happen, and thank you for
It's my
making.
pleasure. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any last words? Any quotes you want to drop? Anything you want to say?
Quotes on it. I don't know. I don't know if I have anything. Yeah, like again, I'll come back to this one. You don't have the experience unless you have the experience. So, we talked about that in terms of like, brain development and making your brain and do what you want to do. We talked about it in terms of like going to college. Like, I think it's important to give yourself the experience, and that'll make all this work and all this change. But you don't know the experience is good for you until you have the experience. Go have an experience.
I love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
All right, Ryan. Thank you so much for making the time. And I appreciate it. Great. Talk soon.
All right.